Welcome to this reading skills video. This short presentation is on the skill of inference. So what is inference? First, let's take a look at the National Curriculum Reading Content Domains. The National Curriculum Programme of Study for Reading is huge. It's absolutely everything that you have to learn for reading throughout your time. So what they do is they distill that down to 8 different discrete skills, which they call content domains, that they're going to test you on at the end of year 6. Today, we're going to focus on 2D. Make inferences from the text, explain and justify inferences with evidence from the text, which we shorten to inference. Inference is often called reading between the lines. When we infer meaning, we use clues given to us to reach a conclusion. These clues can be anything from a specific word used to the way a character acts, and inference questions are the most common question types in tests alongside retrieval questions. We use inference every day. When we talk to other people, we infer meaning from their tone of voice and body language, which often tell us a lot about how someone is feeling. We can tell that each of these people feels something different, and we can infer that they are sad, happy, or confused. When we speak to someone, watch a film, look at a picture, or read a book, we infer meaning from the clues we are given. There are lots of different inference question types, so it's not worth trying to learn about stems for them. They're all asking you what you know, and more importantly, how you know. So you need to provide evidence for your answer. I'll demonstrate how to do this when I model some questions for you. In order to develop your inference skills, you should always reflect on what you read and watch all of the time. So this means stopping to think about the things that you're reading and watching. For example, ask yourself what you found out at the end of a chapter in your book, and think about how you know that. Ask questions you want to find out the answer to, and look for clues as you read that might answer them. While each question is asking you what you think, there will be specific answers that they're looking for which demonstrate that you have inferred the correct meaning from the clues. This list of success criteria is helpful, but may not support you answering every inference question. However, it's always helpful to read the question carefully, in every question, not just inference questions. Think about what you know in relation to the question. Think about how you know that. What clues were you given in the text? Find the evidence, the clues in the text that support what you think. And for inference questions which require a longer answer, which is often worth 2 or 3 marks, you should try to structure your answer using point, evidence, explanation, or P as the acronym. Children always enjoy the acronym P, but making your point, which is I think this, the evidence, and why that evidence supports your point. Here is an example of an inference question from the 2019 Key Stage 2 reading paper. Here, they've kindly told us what we already know. So normally with an inference question, they want to ask you what you know and how you know it. But here they've told us the what we know part already, which is quite kind. So we've already got this. We just need to find the evidence that tells us that this is true and this is true. So first things first, we need to read the question carefully. Look at the section headed Save RBs. Complete the table below with one piece of evidence from the leaflet to support each statement. So the first statement is the Bumblebee Conservation Trust is worried about bees. And the second statement is the leaflet makes readers feel hopeful for bumblebees. So they've told us the section we're looking at, so we might as well read through this and highlight any language that seems like worried language or hopeful language. Save our bees. Bumblebees are among the most loved and familiar of garden insects. The sight and sound of them buzzing from flower to flower is an essential part of summertime. But sadly, these fat, furry little creatures are struggling to survive. That's quite worrying, isn't it? At the time of writing, 24 bumblebee species are found in the UK. But unfortunately, in the last 80 years, 2 UK species have become extinct and others have declined sharply. That's important too. In our modern world of paved gardens and intensive farming, our bumblebees find themselves hungry and homeless. That's worrying, isn't it? The reason for this is simple and clearly visible. There are now far fewer flowers to provide bees with the pollen and nectar they need to survive. But all is not lost. That actually sounds quite hopeful. All is not lost. You can take action today to help save these hard-working pollinators. So you can take action. There's something you can do. This fact sheet explains how. So I've got several things here that make me feel worried about bumblebees. And I've got a couple of things here at the very end that give me hope. All is not lost and that I can take action. So I'm going to copy one of these. I'm going to pick bees are struggling to survive for my evidence about worry, and all is not lost for something that makes me feel hopeful. Let's try one more. This is a very common type of inference question. It's asking us about our impression of something. So if we read it, what impressions do you get of Piper's house? Give 2 impressions using evidence from the text to support your answer. So in the last question, they gave us the points that we had to find the evidence for. But in this one, we've got to make the points and provide the evidence. So this is our impression. Now, what this is asking us to do is describe something or someone we've been reading about. So when you read a question that asks you about your impression or your impressions, it's asking you what you think. So describe what you think about someone or something you've been reading about in your own words, and then provide the evidence to support those words. These types of questions are often worth more marks, and as you can see, this question is worth 3 marks. This question has been really kind, and they've even told us they want 2 impressions. So we don't have to sit there and think about getting 2 or 3 impressions. It's told us wants 2 impressions, and if we'd put in 1 impression, it'd not been enough. It's been very kind. It's given us the really clear information. It's also put it in a very nice frame, so we don't have to write a paragraph. We don't have to think about how to structure our answer. We write our impression, and then we write our evidence. If we're trying to explain what we think of something, we need some describing words. So we need to think of some adjectives. So you really need to think of adjectives to describe the thing that are your own words. Don't take words from the text, because this is not a retrieval question after all. And these words should not be random, because we need to prove them with evidence from the text. In this particular story, a girl called Piper is lying awake at night, and her friend Micah is about to knock on the door and bring her something that he's found. Now, the first paragraph does quite a bit of description of her house, so I'm going to read that, a little bit of that. Piper never slept on these nights when debris from the other worlds fell from the sky. Restlessness kept her awake in bed, staring at the slanted ceiling of her house. So her house has got a slanted ceiling, so she's sort of sitting in the roof, really, sleeping in the roof. She counted the widening cracks in the grey scrub pine planks, which kind of makes me think her house might be quite old and quite dilapidated. And then she counted the seconds as they ticked on the tarnished silver watch she wore around her neck. So the next bits are all about her, and I'm going to come down again to a bit that's about her house. And when she's opened the door and she sees Micah standing there, it's very cold outside, and she lets him in, and he says, "It's so cold my teeth are cracking together." So that's your own fault for being out on a storm night. Most scrappers have the sense to stay inside. He was right, though. The air already reeked of brimstone. The storm was coming. Piper moved to let him in and then shut the door behind him. He immediately ran to the cast-iron stove to warm his hands. So there's a cast-iron stove warming up the whole room, which makes me think it might be cosy. So the first thing I'm going to do is put in my first impression. I think the house might be quite old. And then I also think it might be quite cosy because of the fire. And those are my bits of evidence. So my evidence for it being old are the widening cracks. And my evidence for it being cosy is how quickly Micah rushes in to warm his hands at the stove. And that's how I answer that question. If you have any other ideas for videos or things you'd like to have instruction on, then I'm happy to hear from you. Please put a comment below. And if you found this interesting, you might like videos on other reading skills that I've made, just click on the links below. And I'll see you again soon. Bye!